Let's move it along real quick and keep it in that vein of where we were talking about our top prospect breakdowns. We've had this one on the back burner for a while. You guys have probably already read it. I think we posted it 2 days ago on our Patreon group. Again, another perk to being in the Patreon community is you get access to these the second they're created, and then we'll incorporate them into the show as we go along. Yeah, so what we've got is edge defenders. And the way I did this, guys, is I went and grabbed the top 7 edge defenders and broke them down, okay? And this was a real fun write-up here. Now, understand some of the stats may be inaccurate. We used AI to pull a lot of it. So if you see something, say something, right, Jake? That's what they always say. Mm-hmm. If you see an error, mention it in the comments over on YouTube, and we'll get that changed. I think last week we had someone, it was the high school that Jacob Bayer went to. The AI pulled the wrong high school, and it was fairly close to where he went to high school. So we were able to change that, and I can edit these articles to get the information out accurate. Also, there are what we call collections over on Patreon. If you click on those collections, if you're a member of just the $3 tier, what you get access to is I'm basically filing all of these articles into specific categories. So if you want to go look at all the offensive linemen prospects, they're all in there. You want to go look at the edge defenders, they're in there. We got it all broken down. There'll be history segments. We'll put all the history articles in there as well. So you can just kind of go back through that. So, all right, top 7 edge defenders. I did this one a little bit different. I thought it'd be fun to kind of mix things up. So here are how they sat on our big board 2 days ago. Again, our board's constantly shuffling. It doesn't shuffle that much, so these should be in this I don't know, a roundabout area on our board. Okay, physical traits, 2025 NFL scouting combine data. Okay, in the number 11 spot on our big board was James Pierce Jr., 6'5", 243, 4.47 40, 1.58 10-yard split, 32.5-inch arm length, explosive, lean frame. And here's the guy. In the 14 spot, we got Mike Green, 6'3", 251, 4.57 40-yard dash, 1.62 10-yard split with 33-inch arms, solid athleticism. Number 16 spot, we've got Shamar Stewart. Now, you guys know the Packers met with James Pierce Jr., and they also met with Shamar Stewart. He's in the 16 spot on our board. 6'6", 267 pounds. He played at 280 pounds, though. That's what's crazy. He was listed at 290 in some places, but he's definitely an edge defender. 4'6", 140, 1.65 10-yard split, 34.5-inch arms. His wingspan was insane, they said. 999 RAS with massive build. In the number 18 spot, surprise, surprise, it's another Packers top 30 visit. We talked about him last night. That's Michael Williams. 6'5", 260, 4.73 40-yard dash, 1.64 10-yard split, 33.5-inch arms, strong, prototypical top edge defender. Number 25 spot, we got Nick Scorton, 6'2". Here's the guy. Untested, all right. An untested 40-yard dash, an untested 10-yard split as of the writing of this article with 32 3/4-inch arms, stocky and powerful is what it says. Number 32, we got Jeff Hafley's very own Donovan Raku, 6'2", 250, untested 40-yard dash. It was an untested 10-yard split at the time, 34-inch arms, undersized, long reach, though. Okay. And then 33 on our big board was Landon Jackson, 6'6", 264, 4.68 40, 1.68 10-yard split, 32.25-inch arms. He has a towering frame.
Thick.
Round the horn with this real quick, boys. What do y'all think about those measurements?
You know what pops out to me is that I love Donovan Ezeraku, but I just thought he's just undersized and the Packers wouldn't ever take a stab at him. But you look at the 34-inch arms on a 6'2" frame, that's kind of crazy. Like, that dude is a little oddly sized. It must be hard for him to find good shirts. But that to me, it kind of makes up. You know, you look at some of these guys like a Landon Jackson. He's a freak. He's got 32 basically inch arms. He's got Donovan has 2 inches more, which doesn't sound like a lot, but hey, I tell you what, a couple inches makes all the difference. So it's if you can make that first contact, that's half the battle of, you know, that stab, whatever you want to call it. Like it will make a difference to kind of offset that undersize and the height and weight area, I think.
Yeah. Tim, I know you're just
come on, Tim. What's up, man?
I'm wondering why my boy Princely Montemillion isn't on this.
He's so disappointed.
That's what I'm wondering.
A little lower on our board. Matter of fact, I'll tell you exactly where he's at here, Tim. Princely, and again, these were the top 7 on our board. What I tried to do was narrow it down to those guys that may go in the first round at the time that we created the article, because one thing's for sure, guys, 3 of the players on this list the Packers set up top 30 visits with, they are eyeing an edge defender in the first round is what it really feels like. At least that's the early indication. Okay. So with Princely, I want to say he's a little bit lower. We've got him in the 52 spot, Tim. Now the Packers have met with him, not a top 30 visit, but he is in the number 52 spot. Well, he killed it on PFF last year though. My God. So
definitely, that's my dude right there. He's probably going to be a second round guy, I think, based on where I've seen him on a lot of boards. But I think this is a great list, though. I mean, I think if we add any one of these dudes to our edge room, man, we're going to be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. And here's the thing, too, Tim. You love Princely a lot, right? In the first round, we've talked about, man, do you go 3-tech or you go edge, right? I think you and I both agree. I would rather have a 3-tech over an edge.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you get to the second round. What if Princely and Jaden Higgins are both sitting there? What are you going to do, Tim? Jaden Higgins and Princely are sitting there with the 54 pick. Which one would you take? I got to put you on the spot here, man.
I'm going to give you a real shocking answer.
With the
54th pick in the draft, the Green Bay Packers take Jaden Higgins, Iowa State.
So we like Princely. We just don't like him that much.
I mean, if we get a 3-tech first, yeah, I'm more likely to want to go ahead and grab that stud receiver that I've been talking about, for the last 6 months. But I don't know. Shamar Stewart jumps off the tape too. And I do. I like Princely out of Ole Miss. But not as much as I like Jaden Higgins. It's no secret.
Prince in the chat says, make it harder. Princely, Higgins, and Amos are all there. That's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting. The answer is always trade back, though, right, Jacob? It's always trade back. Trade back and get that
back. It is an interesting group, though, because I agree. I really like Princely as well. I also have kind of a soft spot for Jared Ivey, the opposite edge that not a lot of people have talked about. He was 6'6", 285 according to PFF and had a 90.6 grade last year. So that whole defensive line was absolutely pretty much studs across that Ole Miss. I mean, that Ole Miss lineup, I can't believe those guys didn't win more games because that was just a powerhouse of a team this year.
Yeah. Fidel Smith says, only thing that scares me is Shamar Stewart because of his lack of production. It scares us too, man. It does. We talk about all the time, and I don't want to speak for the guys. You guys correct me if you disagree. If I've got 2 prospects, one's a physical freak and the other has way better production, way better results, I'm leaning toward the guy who had the results on the field as opposed to the dude in the underwear Olympics. That's just me. For example, if you look at this list, and I'm glad you brought this up again, you guys, if you see an inaccuracy with the stats, let me know. There may be some in here. I think we got them right. Like Michael Williams, or some sites that had him for like 4.5 sacks. Others had him at 3, so we just tried to do the best we could here, okay? James Pierce Jr., 7.5 sacks, 13 tackles for a loss. That was for 14 games in 2024, according to the system here. Shamar Stewart, 2.5 sacks, 6 tackles for a loss. That was for 14 games at Texas A&M. Mike Green, 17 sacks, 22.5 tackles for a loss in 14 games. Michael Williams, 3 sacks, 6.5 tackles for a loss with 15 games with Georgia. Nick Scorton, 5 sacks, 14 tackles for a loss for Texas A&M in 14 games. Donovan Ezaraku, 16.5 sacks, 20.5 tackles for a loss out of Boston College in 13 games. And Landon Jackson, 6.5 sacks, 9.5 tackles for a loss, Arkansas, 13 games. So with that being said, when you look at the production aspect and where these guys sit on the board for us, if we scroll back up, the big thing that sticks out is look at Mike Green, right? 17 sacks, 22.5 tackles for a loss. And then look at Donovan Ezaraku. Those are the 2 that really stick out to me, right? So where is Mike Green and Donovan Ezaraku on our list? Again, Ezaraku's in the 32 spot. Mike Green is in the 14 spot. We have not met with Mike Green. Now, here's where it gets frustrating for me as a Packer fan. Everyone will say, well, Clayton, they're not going to draft him because he's only 251 pounds. And it's like, okay, then don't be pissed off when you don't have the production that you're looking for, right? Mike Green, to me, seems like that's the dude when you look at a production standpoint. You guys, what's your take? Did you see any numbers that may be wrong there? How do you feel about it, Jake?
I mean, you know what's interesting is that you look at the two guys that are quote unquote undersized seem to have by far the best production there.
Right.
And you could. I'm not saying that that's a causation, type thing, or if a guy can play, he can play. I think, like you said, I know for a fact that we as Packer fans have been way too used to the idea of, hey, if he's got a 10 RAS or a 9.9 or a 9.8, that means that we can plug and play. We can develop him. We can do all this kind of stuff. It just isn't the case. It's just not the case. We've seen it time and time again. However, I will say that this year of all years, I could totally see the fact that Shemar Stewart, with not much production in college, all of a sudden is the one guy that comes into the league and just all of a sudden starts blowing it up. You know what I mean? Just starts having double-digit sacks, tackles for loss, absolute disruptor. I could see him breaking that streak in the 1 year that we maybe would pass on it and get a guy like a more of an undersized guy that's produced like Ezeraku. I still have a lot of confidence in Ezeraku. Even if we were to pick him, I mean, I wouldn't want him in the first, but second round pick, I totally would be okay with it.
Got it. Tim, what about you, man? I don't know if you had to step away. I'll give you a second to see if you're still here.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good, man. You're good. What do you think about it, from a production standpoint there in college?
Yeah, I mean, are you talking just in general with Stewart?
Just all the way around? Like, the whole purpose of this is, all right, we're obviously looking at an edge defender in the first round. Does the production change your stance on who you may or may not choose? Because, like, when I see these numbers, the one that sticks out to me is Mike Green. But again, when you're talking about the athletic threshold and him being 251 pounds, it's the same story with James Pierce Jr. I don't know. It gets aggravating, man, because it's like, okay, just because he's 10 pounds lighter, even though he absolutely shredded it in college, why would we worry about that 1 inch of height? You know what I'm saying? So
exactly,
that's basically what we're hitting.
I agree with your stance that I'd rather have the guy with the production. I don't really care about the measurables as much as the tail of the tape, the guy that's getting it done. And I think a lot of these, this crop of edge defenders, you're kind of, it seems like one or the other. It's hard to get the guy that's the hits the measurables you want and then has the production you want. It's kind of like a one or the other scenario. And when you're talking about a first round pick, especially with Goody, we have had kind of an up and down track record, and we know that Goody likes the RAS scores, and he likes the athleticism and things like that, and may actually kind of look past limited production sometimes. So hopefully this is the year that change, and we see a change there, and we go with production based talent, especially with a first round pick. So I'm with you, man. You really look on paper and it's like Mike Green looks like the dude. I just don't know if that's who we're going to end up drafting if we do go edge first round.
Right. And listen, I definitely trust our board over production. I don't want this come across the wrong way. When you look at the board, you're looking for, okay, who are the best on the board, and then throw the production category, like almost like a tiebreaker, like a cluster buster. All right, who had the most production in college since these guys are grouped together? Like, for instance, if Shemar Stewart was significantly higher than Mike Green, let's say that Shemar Stewart was 10th on our board and Mike Green was 32nd, I'm going Shemar Stewart because the board says you always trust the board, right? Mm-hmm. But the fact that they're so close together and actually trying to see exactly how close they are here, you've got Shemar Stewart is 14th, right? And who's the other guy? Mike Green. Mike Green is 20th. So they're literally one tier apart. You see what I'm saying? So that's where you go, Shemar Stewart's the better prospect according to the board. You'd have to climb down a tier. You'd reach a little bit for Mike Green, but the production is so high, it makes you think about it. So,
what do you think about what J. Cole says here? He says someone mentioned that Texas A&M defense were focused heavily on stopping the run. Now, the 2.5 sacks concerns me about Stewart, but the guy is a freak athlete. That reminds me of the argument that I heard for Rashawn Gary, where he was not basically allowed to unleash. He was more of a contained guy that was just basically to set the edge and really be an unselfish type player that was a difference maker on that defense. And the fact that he was willing to not have the production that probably would have helped his draft stock even more was a big feather in his cap kind of thing. Now, if we take a step back and realize that up until this point, Rashawn Gary has never had a double-digit sack in his career season. Now, do you consider that a bust? Do you consider that I'm not going to make that determination right now. I think that I like Rashawn Gary. I think that we have a better team with him on our team.
Mm-hmm.
I just would, that's one thing to think about is like, do we want to go down that road again and have a guy that we have another contract, double contracts with that doesn't produce more than double-digit sack season in his career? And it is something I think that's why everybody's a little gun shy right now with these.
Yeah, no, I completely
RAS.
understand. And the other conversation too is, did they play in a 3-4 or 4-3?
Right,
Like,
exactly.
now, when you're building a draft board, you don't list that on your draft board, right? You simply watch the tape and you can determine you're trying to project anyway into the next round. But it does have a fact. It does have an effect on the outcome of the numbers. There's no doubt. Now, could Texas A&M have keyed in on the run? That's quite possible, right? That's really kind of what it looks like, because you don't have anyone on there that just absolutely blew up in terms of sacks, right? Like you see Nick Scorton here as well. You got Shamar Stewart. They played on the same team together. You got several defensive linemen, interiors that played on the same team together. So that's the real thing about Green Bay. I just wish people would have the same grace towards the Packers and their defense last year. It was so obvious they were focused on stopping the run. And because the sack numbers are low, everybody loses their mind all of a sudden. Cut Gary, get rid of this guy. It's like you've really got to watch the tape and go, okay, what are they trying to accomplish? Now, in terms of Rashawn Gary, you can watch, his college highlights. They actually played him inside a lot too. There's one particular highlight where he occupies 4 blockers. There's literally 4 guys trying to block him, and he's walking them to the sideline to force the running back outside. Now, is Rashawn Gary a Hall of Famer? No. Is he an All-Pro? No. He made a Pro Bowl last year. You can roll your eyes at that. I completely understand. What you've got in Rashawn Gary, I think, is a very good – when he's on his game, he's a great edge defender. When he's not on his game, I still think he's very good. Go look at him in the run game last year. And that's why, Jacob, this isn't a shot at you. This is just my stance. I could give a rat's ass about the sack totals. We wanted a better run defense. We got it. We wanted a better pass defense. We got it. And now we're going, we need more sacks. That's the stuff I don't look at the game that way. That's why, we always say, take your eye off the ball, like Pat Kirwan says in his book. If you're just focused on the stat column, if you're just focused on sacks, you're just focused on touchdowns, you're just focused on yards, you're not truly watching what's going on in the game. And I know one of the big arguments that you hear a lot is, well, I just want somebody who finishes. What the hell does that mean? Oh, that means you want more sacks. Got it. Okay. You keep your sacks. I want the dude who's going to pressure, 50% more than the guy with the high sacks and force interceptions. See, you can't mention we had lower sack numbers last year and conveniently not mention how many interceptions we had, right? Because the goal is takeaways and point differential. That's what it comes down to. Again, if I have to choose between 2 players, would you rather have more sacks or less? Of course I want more, but not at the expense of someone who's going to have a lower pressure rate because they're, running wild up the field and they're leaving their gap assignment as well. That's a big problem with Devontae Wyatt. Devontae Wyatt, if they just say, hey, man, you got the freedom, go get the quarterback, he can do that. But they're trying to harness him into keeping his gap integrity so they can keep that run defense, in the top 10, top 5 of the league. And I think that's what's going to put you in a position to win championships. Because if you take that run away and you force a team to be one-dimensional, and now you're playing 7 in coverage with a 4-man rush with one of the 4 guys that are rushing the quarterback playing a touch spy where the quarterback can't scramble, that's where you end up with a lot of interceptions. So it's give and take, man. It really is. Hugh, Mr. Jass, I've always got to say it that way. Jass with the super chat. Thanks, PTA. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate you, man.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
One other real quick point, we were talking about scheme, 4-3 guys versus 34 guys. I think when you're talking about like edge defenders, it's not as big of a deal, I guess, is how I would say it is. A lot of guys are going to get drafted and they're going to be asked to do things that they weren't necessarily doing in college anyway. And I think with an edge defender, whether you're a 34 guy or a 43 guy, I don't think that's like a huge deal breaker. Like you look at Ezra Raku, he's a 34 guy. Well, that doesn't mean he wouldn't have success in our defense. And I think it's important to remember that and not fixate too much on the schemes that they played, in college.
Yeah, definitely. SDM40 says, I must be crazy. I'm thinking the edge room is full and Goot is patient and Covington was hired to fix that room. All of those are great points. You're not crazy for thinking that, SDM40. Just don't tweet it, okay? 'Cause if you tweet it, I'm telling you, the Cash, they come out of the woodwork, bub. It's hilarious. And when you look at the edge room, that's the point I was trying to make, is like the reason I feel like we've got room to go get a 3-tech. TJ Slayton walked in free agency, so you got a void there, right? Kenny Clark's cap number jumps to $30 million next year. You got to make a decision there. So if you go get the 3-tech of the future now, oh, by the way, this is one of the best drafts for 3-tech. You go get a 3-tech now and let him play behind Kenny and work himself into the rotation. You'll make a decision on Devontae Wyatt, whether you want to keep him. And if you hit on an absolute stud at 3-tech, you move on from Kenny, you step in with a rookie contract, you got a better player, you upgraded the position, LVN takes the next step. Rashawn Gary's going to start the decline soon. And some people think it happened last year. I refuse to believe it watching him in run defense. Like, you could just see him keying in on the run all year. He still led the team in sacks. He led the team in pressures. He led all these things. So I think in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to be moving on from him. That's why they're probably looking at edge in the first round, because 3-tech is so deep. They may go edge first, 3-tech second, then wide receiver in the third.
Oh, bye-bye, Jaden Higgins.
Exactly. So, and again, we did a really cool article here on Patreon. You can check it out. The picture, I can't remember the title, but the picture will have Elijah Badger from the Florida Gators. We gave you guys 3 wide receivers later in the draft that are like, whoa, these dudes look like the real deal. Elijah Badger was one really late. But, yeah, there's a couple guys on there that I could see Goody going, you know what, let's go edge, let's go 3-tech, then let's go wide receiver. That could be the case as well.
Did you guys by chance get to listen to Ryan's pod this morning?
I did not yet.
He brought back up the probability from basically what I could get. It was that I can't remember what the source was, but it was somebody either in the Packers organization or close to the Packers, blah, blah, blah. But basically said it's basically a well-known fact, a known secret, that the Packers are still actively shopping Jair, and that he's not going to probably be with the team.
That's a real thing.
That draft.
Rob Domofsky put an article out. He talked to sources on both sides. So he talked to someone within the team and someone within Jair's camp.
So do you see any credence to the fact that possibly we get another draft pick within the top 50, the top 75?
Oh, yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
Basing from and if that's the case, Tim, would you be able to swallow that knife, which I know is going to hurt, if, say, you were to get a draft pick that were to make a Jaden Higgins available or enter 3-tech here? You know what I mean? Something that would at least maybe.
Oh, that would make me feel a lot better about
right.
Jair getting traded, right? If Goody can finagle a 3rd rounder or something for him, and or multiple picks possibly as a deal, makes a little bit more sense. You know, the thing that scares me is the talk of just like, you know, an outright post June 1 cut or something.
That's
like
what Dennis just said.
that. Yeah, I know, but I just don't see that. That would really suck, honestly, you know, because I feel like you're getting nothing. What do they save, $6 million on the cap or something?
Yeah, but if you go post June 1, I think those numbers kind of flip, so you're going to free up even more money post.
Okay, more money. All right. Well, what would you rather have, more cap room or extra draft capital? I think Goody would answer that question with both. But
both.
Yeah, both. It might be one or the other though. But no, to answer your question, Jacob, that would make, as a Jair fan, it would suck to see him leave. But if we got great value and we brought in, like you said, we got a monster 3-tech out of the deal, plus maybe we add another one of these, you know, upper to middle tier corners. There is some corner talent, you know, in this draft as well. You know, talk about rounding that room out. So yeah, I think if we get some capital for him, I'll be a little bit happier, you know.
All right, that's going to do it for hour 1. For those of you listening on the pod, we'll see you on the other side for hour 2, where we will continue the top 7 edge defender conversation. We appreciate y'all. All right, welcome into hour 2, and we'll continue this. Anything else you guys want to add on the Jair talk? I think that was a fascinating question there, Jacob. And you know, using the Rich Hill trade chart, someone had asked me on Twitter the other day, do you think we could climb back up to this pick, trading that pick? It's going to probably take Jair and a pick to climb up around is essentially what it's going to take, right? So I think that's a real thing. I think that's a great conversation. But anything else you guys want to mention on that before we get back to the edge defenders here?
No, I like what Tim said. I want more draft capital. I really do. I just think that it'd be a better overall investment.
I want Jair Alexander on the team, so that's where I'm at. But it looks more and more every day like that's not going to happen. I had false hope there for a while, Clayton. I really thought they were going to.
Hey man, I've been right there with you,
loading up talent around them. But
again, I want Jair. I want 80 overall Jair is what I'm wanting. You know what I mean? And a healthy version of him. The reality is it hasn't been there. So I can understand both sides. I'm with you, Tim.
Yep.
Like if you keep Jair and you draft somebody like Jahdae Barron in the first round and you couple those guys together, holy cow. But it does seem like both sides, according to Rob Demovsky, they've already made their decision. They're moving on. The question is, does a team risk them getting into a bidding war for him after the draft, or do they go ahead and give up a draft pick? And that's why I think it's on the table. Here's the thing. The conversations have all been had. The Packers have talked to people. We already know that about potentially trading him. So there's probably packages already put together where teams that are looking to draft the corner say, hey, look, if we don't, we really like a few guys here in the first and second round. If we don't get any of those guys, we'll trade you a third for him or a fourth for him, whatever it may be. Those packages are already in place. I just about guarantee it. So on draft night, when the Packers are on the clock, whether it be the third or the fourth round, they may get that call and go, hey, man, we didn't get our guy. We'd like to give you our fourth round pick for Ja. That could be the case. That's why when you're grouping picks together, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's less likely because that scenario that I just laid out is kind of out the window as if there was a specific approach to this exact pick here. So it's going to be interesting, though, man. It's going to make draft night even more enjoyable for sure. Drew D says post-June 1 cut, just spread the hit over an extra year. It's the same amount of money paid. There you go. So like I said, you can choose – the guaranteed money is the guaranteed money. You could choose, do you want to free up more money now or later? And here's a big misconception. I think there's a lot of people that don't understand rollover cap. Like someone called into Packernet After Dark and was like, hey, why don't we eat a bunch of cap this year so we have more cap next year? If you don't use the cap, whether you eat it this year or not, you still roll it over, the cap space. The reality of the situation is how much of the guaranteed money do you want to pay so you can lower the cap number if you can get a player to take a restructure or a pay cut when it's in all honesty, we've covered this a lot. You're basically guaranteeing more of the contract so you can free up space. That's what Andrew Brandt refers to as cash over cap. You're trading cash for more cap space is essentially what you're doing. So, all right, back to the edge defenders here. Strengths, James Pierce Jr., his strengths are speed rusher, devastating first step. So there's your speed rusher of this draft, right? That's what he does, and he does it well. I think he's coming in at like 248 pounds, something like that is the most recent reports. Greg Cosell said, when you see this dude, he looks like a safety. He said if he develops a power move, if he develops power within his pass rush, he's going to be dominant. But that's the thing he's lacking. Shamar Stewart, power and size, versatility versus the run/pass. So he definitely looked good against the run. As we had mentioned, Texas A&M seemed to have really keyed in on stopping the run last year. Mike Green, explosive, physical, and well-rounded. Don't that sound like the highest floor that we just talked about? It doesn't mention he's a little bit undersized weight-wise, but it didn't mention that with James Pierce either. Mikel Williams, toolsy, strength, bend, and burst. Okay, that's another top 30 visit for the Packers. Nick Scorton, bull rush power, inside spin. So this is the guy that Greg Cosell really raved over. He's like, this guy is a pass rusher. He's got moves. He's got multiple moves. He can rush speed to power. He can rush power to speed. And he's got a really good inside spin move, according to this as well. Donovan Ezaraku, twitchy, refined moves, relentless. So there's another guy that you probably say, looking at the scouting report, a better pass rusher. And then Landon Jackson, run-stopping anchor, uses length. That's that dude that's got the big wingspan there. So go ahead, Jacob. What do you got?
Nothing. I'm just when Dwight Schrute was asked to describe himself in 3 words, he's like relentless, insatiable, jackhammer. That's just what I see when I see these descriptions here. You know,
I've never heard toolsy used before. That's a good one. Toolsy. I'm assuming that means
we got a couple that are toolsy in the chat. No,
just a few.
Landon Jackson is an increasingly interesting prospect, especially if he were to fall into like the 3rd or something like that. I mean, the guy just looks scary. Like everything about him. He's quick. He's massive. He says run-stopping anchor uses length. I mean, the guy, he seems like he's just a scary looking guy. It'd be great if we could maybe have him. He reminds me of more of like a Preston Smith type, where he's not necessarily going to wow you, but he's so long and powerful that he can absolutely take care of business to set that edge and possibly be a decent enough pass rusher. But we'll see.
Yeah, we got Landon Jackson in the 34 spot. And,
wow.
Kyle Krabs had him at 23, but Dane Brugler had him at 45. So he's right in the middle of those two guys. So, yeah, he's probably going to be a second-round pick, I would imagine.
PFF's got him at 41 right now.
There you go.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
That kind of checks out. All right. So, again, those are the strengths. Now, let's go to the weaknesses. James Pierce Jr. struggles versus the run. He's one-dimensional. We just kind of talked about that. Shamar Stewart, low production, lacks elite bend. Mike Green, past off-field concerns, not run dominance, what it says, even though he had like 22 or whatever it was tackles for a loss. I don't know what his run defense grade was. They may disagree, but again, this is just pulling from a multitude of scouting reports. Michael Williams, slow recognition, inconsistent snap timing. All right, so he seems kind of raw.
You know, likey that, Jan.
Mike Green's run defense grade last year was a 90.2.
Got it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and when you see the tackles for a loss as well, you would probably disagree with the weakness list here for him, no doubt. Nick Scorton, stiff hips, lacks top burst. Donovan Ezaraku, undersized, weaker versus the run. Landon Jackson, limited pass rush moves, average quickness is what it says. So, again, I don't like to focus on the weaknesses because that's not what coaches do. That's not what scouts do. They try to gear the information to what can this player do for our football team as opposed to what does he not do. You'll hear multiple coaching rants about that. Like everybody gets so damn hung up on what they can't do. Forget that. Throw it out the window. What can he do? How can we put him in a position to help our football team? And then that's how you rank them. Now, the pessimists in the world, they're going to try to find the negative and key in on it. And that's probably why some people look at this draft and go, it's a boring draft because they're focused on the weaknesses. You can't do that. That's not what coaches and GMs do. They don't sit around and go, all right, guys, let's put the list of weaknesses up for our top 250 prospects. Yep. They're going, what do they bring to the table? What's their upside? How do they project to the next level? This is what this player does well. Okay, is there a way that we can put him in a position to do that in our defense? If there isn't, then no, we don't need that guy. We need someone who's going to complement the players that are already on our roster, and you can't try to decide that by just focusing on the negative. That makes
Especially
sense.
When you look at some of these weaknesses being things that you can't control, right? Like undersized. Okay, well, I'm sorry. This is my body. What am I supposed to do about that? And then the other half of the list is things that can be coached up and out and worked on. Mm-hmm. Look at Michael Williams. I don't like that he's got slow recognition or inconsistent snap timing. Get his ass on the practice field and work on it. Get that dummy ball out and work on the snaps. You can coach that up. Things like one-dimensional James Pierce Jr., right? Struggles against the run. Okay, well, then you have a run-heavy focus with him and take that approach and try and add that attribute to his game. But, if you've got average quickness like Landon Jackson, I don't know how you can't teach quickness.
Right.
You either have it or you don't. So I think it's important that you're right. You avert your attention to the things they do well and try and put them in a position to utilize those traits and not get focused on the weaknesses.
Yeah, just real quick, James Pierce Jr. also this last year had a run defense grade of 84.1. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah. And again, man, you guys know how I feel about PFF. I think it's a great tool, but until they show me here's the guy. Here's the play. Like if they showed individual play grades, I would be a lot higher on it. But where it's just this kind of vague, we know it happens at the NFL level with PFF that sometimes you get the grade and you're like, that does not match the tape at all. Like that happens from time to time. Imagine how much it happens when you've got 400 college teams that they're trying to watch, right? So, which is funny because sometimes I check on my local ETSU Buccaneers to see what their PFF grades are. And they don't even watch them. They're like, Bub, we ain't sending nobody out there. You kidding me? So, all right. So moving on to NFL comparisons. These are just comps. It doesn't mean they're the only comps. These are just some of them. Okay. James Pierce Jr., Brian Burns. You guys remember edge defender that Carolina drafted, pretty good football player. Shamar Stewart's is Jadeveon Clowney. Don't like that. Don't like it. And he played in the league for a while. He may still be in the league, but he never lived up to that hype. If let's be honest, if he hadn't knocked that South Carolina, or no, was it South Carolina? No, it was Michigan. If he hadn't knocked that Michigan player's helmet off, in that game, he probably wouldn't have went in the top 5. That was just the ultimate highlight reel. Mike Green is Leonard Floyd. Michael Williams is Daniil Hunter. That's not a bad comp right there. That'd be all right. Nick Scorton, Zadarius Smith.
Oh, I'm out on Scorton now.
Now, this is strictly physical tools, Tim. They're not saying that Nick Scorton wants to be a captain as a rookie, okay? That's not what they're saying.
Does he want to play for a new team every season?
Donovan Ezeraku, Hassan Reddick, and then Landon Jackson, Max Crosby.
Max Crosby.
There you go, boys. You're finally getting your Max Crosby. We're getting it.
I knew they were going to do it, guys.
All right. Moving on to draft stock. We'll get ready to wrap.
The meatloaf. We want it now.
Here's the draft stock, okay? And this is what it was projected a couple of days ago, just looking at what I went through and combed through the latest consensus mock drafts, okay? James Pierce is typically going anywhere from 10 to 30 in this draft, okay? So I know it's a wide range, but some people see him as a top 10 talent. Other people see it as he should fall out of the first. Shamar Stewart, top 10 to 25, so a little bit higher consistency than James Pierce Jr. Mike Green, 10 to 30 as well, so right there with James Pierce Jr. Michael Williams, 10 to 25, same as Shamar Stewart. Nick Scorton is 20 to 35 typically. All right, and these are, just overall picks, the 20th pick to the 35th pick. Donovan Ezeraku, a late first to second rounder, and Landon Jackson, late first to second rounder as well. So when you look at that, the Packers are probably going to have a few of these guys to choose from, as opposed to like Jahdae Barron or maybe like a Will Johnson or even like one of the top tackles or maybe a couple of the top receivers. You're probably going to have a pretty good group to pick from here at edge in the first round if you decide to go that route.
What, Tim, I'm sure you know this. Why every time I hear Landon Jackson, I hear Keith Jackson, and then I hear Brett Favre going, Mama says, give me some
just the other morning, I had breakfast at Tracy Rucker's house. His mama brought out 15 flapjacks. He said, Mama, take back 5 of them flapjacks. I got to say, hungry
for the Crimson Tide.
I got some advice for y'all. Take 2 weeks off, then quit.
We got to get I got to stay hungry for the Crimson Tide. We just need that one, though.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you guys want to hit on here in terms of draft stock before we get ready to wrap this thing up?
No, I think we covered a lot.
All right. There you go. So here's the quick comparison summary. Sometimes these don't match up with some of the statistics we've seen earlier. You guys, like I said, do your own research. Best speed rusher.
Oh, Nelly, look at them tats.
That was close, Tim. That was close. You about got us canceled, sir.
Oh, yeah, tattoos. That's what we're talking about, right?
God, I love what we do. All right, best speed rusher, James Pierce Jr. All right, 4.47 40 with 7.5 sacks. And Donovan Ezeraku considered a speed rusher as well. 16.5 sacks, 34-inch arms. Best power rusher, Shamar Stewart, 267 pounds at the combine, 999 RAS, along with Nick Scorton, 6'2", 257, but had 14 tackles for a loss. Best run defender, Mike Green, is what they're saying here. 6'3", 251, 22.5 tackles for a loss. And Nick Scorton also on that list, 14 tackles for a loss. So you're seeing Scorton often, aren't you? Already two of the top 3 he's mentioned. Most versatile, Mike Green, with the 17 sacks and the 22.5 tackles for a loss, as well as Michael Williams with the 4.73 40. So they mentioned him. Highest ceiling, Shamar Stewart. I don't think there's any argument there. That dude's an athletic freak. If he hits, it's gonna be a home run. It says combine a 99 RAS. James Pierce Jr. as well with the highest ceiling, 4.47 40-yard speed. But that you can't coach that. You can't get a guy to run faster, right? You can't get a guy to be quicker twitch. Again, like Greg Cosell said, if he develops power in his game, you're going to look up in 10 years and go, damn, James Pierce Jr. was a monster. If you put 10 pounds on him and he develops a couple power moves, watch out. And then highest floor is Mike Green with the elite production we talked about, as well as Nick Scorton, consistent tackles for a loss. The two that stick out to me the most on this list after doing this exercise is Nick Scorton and Mike Green. Those are the ones I would feel the best about. Again, what was Scorton? Does it mention Scorton's size? Just real quick, and we'll come right back down to it because I just want to see, does he meet the profile?
6'4", 285 is what
he'd have to put on about 5 pounds. Well, no, he's not tall. Well, that's the thing too. Though some people will say he's not tall enough at 6'2", but Clay Matthews was 6'2". So Just keep that in mind.
He's only 20 and a half years old as well. Just saying.
Ooh, that'll boost him up the Goody board. So there you go. We pretty much covered all the stats multiple times. It just does a quick analysis of everything. So basically, sack leader ended up being Mike Green, the run stopper, Mike Green, balanced, James Pierce Jr., and then projects would be Shamar Stewart. That's the guy that's got probably the highest upside. So there you go. There is your edge defender